A woman in a tattered red dress stumbles through the downpour and collapses in a back alley. The city's most feared billionaire steps out of his car and lifts her from the mud. But when the rain washes the grime from her face, Miles Joe's world shatters. He hasn't spoken this name in 5 years, hasn't dared to even think it. Nathalia. He whispers. The dying woman opens her eyes, but she doesn't recognize him at all. The rain in the city didn't just fall, it attacked. Each drop hit like an accusation. Miles Joe stepped out of his black Maybach into the back alley, the kind of place his security team had explicitly told him to avoid. He could have sent someone else. With his empire, he had entire floors of people paid to handle disturbances near his properties. But ever since Nathalia's funeral 5 years ago, Miles needed to see things for himself. He trusted no one. On nights like this, he drove through the parts of the city he owned but never visited, as if punishing himself with the reality his glass towers kept out. That's when he heard it, a wet, choking gasp barely audible over the storm. 30 feet ahead, a heap of crimson fabric lay crumpled against the curb. Miles moved without thinking, his Italian leather shoes flooding with gutter water. The rain came down so hard it blurred his vision, but he could make out a figure. A woman, her body curled in on itself like she was trying to disappear. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet 4 inches, skeletal under the soaked, tattered red dress that clung to her like a shroud. Her feet were bare, bloodied. One hand clutched at her chest as if each breath was agony. She wasn't screaming, wasn't begging. Her lips moved silently, repeating something. Maybe a prayer, maybe just counting breaths to stay conscious. Disgust warred with something he'd thought died with Nathalia, humanity. Miles knelt, intending to call 911 and leave before the paparazzi caught wind. He hooked his arms beneath her knees to lift her from the rising puddle. Her head rolled back. The rain stopped making sound. The traffic, the wind, his own heartbeat, everything went silent. The streetlights caught her face, and Miles Joe, the man Forbes called the Ice King, the man who dismantled competitors without flinching, felt the earth tilt. It was her. The almond-shaped eyes. The small mole near her left temple. The same sharp jawline he'd traced with his fingers the night before she died. The woman he'd buried was shivering in his arms, dressed in rags, staring at him with hollow, unrecognizing eyes. She whispered 2 words before her eyes rolled back. "Help me." The penthouse medical suite smelled like antiseptic and lies. Miles stood outside the glass partition, watching the private physician hook 4 lines into the woman's bruised arms. Under the harsh LED lights, cleaned of grime and blood, she looked even more like Nathalia. Impossibly, devastatingly more. Severe malnutrition, Dr. Chen said without looking up. Dehydration. Old fractures that healed wrong. She's been living rough for months, maybe years. Miles's jaw tightened. Nathalia had died in a designer gown, plunging from a clifftop in his arms. This woman wore a dress 5 years out of fashion, tattered and stained with God knew what. It couldn't be her. But then her eyes fluttered open. Where? Her voice cracked raw as an open wound. Miles was through the door before Dr. Chen could stop him. He gripped the railing of her bed, leaning close enough to see the silver flecks in her irises, the same ones he'd memorized during late-night conversations when they'd first fallen in love. "Who are you?" he demanded. She flinched. Talia. I think. They called me Talia." "They who?" "I don't." Her breathing quickened, panicked. "I don't remember. Please, I don't remember anything before the rain." A woman who looked exactly like his dead fiancé, with no memory, wearing the dress from the night she died. Miles felt something crack in his chest, not his heart that had calcified years ago, but the cage he'd built around it. "You're safe here," he heard himself say. The words tasted foreign. Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "You won't send me away? To the shelters?" The desperation in her voice was wrong. Nathalia had been fearless, imperious. This woman was broken. "No." His voice dropped to something almost gentle. "You'll stay. Until we figure out who you are." That night, Miles stood in his study, staring at the single photograph he'd kept, Nathalia at the charity gala, 3 weeks before she died, wearing red. The same red. He pulled up his head of security on speed dial. I need a DNA test. Discreet. And I need everything, on the cliffside incident from 5 years ago. Every witness statement, every police report they buried. Sir, the case was closed. Then unclose it. Miles turned back to the window, where rain still streaked the glass. And I need surveillance on Julian. 24/7. If he so much as breathes wrong, I want to know. He ended the call and whispered to his reflection. If you're alive, Nathalia, someone wanted you dead. And that someone was still out there. Miles made the decision at 3 a.m., staring at the woman who slept fitfully in his guest suite. He couldn't tell her. Not yet. If she was Nathalia and someone had tried to kill her once, they'd try again the moment word got out she was alive. And if she wasn't, if this was some elaborate con, he needed to know before his heart convinced him of a miracle that didn't exist. By dawn, he'd constructed the lie. She would be a charity case. A homeless woman he'd impulsively rescued, nothing more. His staff were paid enough to stay silent. His inner circle would never know she existed. But he needed eyes on her. Someone who could watch without her knowing she was being watched. You want me to babysit? Marcus Chen, his head of security for 15 years, didn't bother hiding his skepticism through the phone. I want you to investigate, Miles snapped, pacing his study. Pose as a private therapist. She has amnesia, at least she claims to. I need to know if she's lying. And if she's not. Miles's throat tightened. Then I need to know why someone wanted Nathalia Reeves dead badly enough to fake her death. The silence on the other end was heavy. You think it's her. I think, Miles said carefully, that my stepbrother Julian asked about the cliffside investigation 3 times in the month after Nathalia died. I think the lead detective retired to the Maldives 6 months later on a government salary. And I think the woman in my penthouse is wearing the dress Nathalia wore that night. Jesus Christ, Miles. Dig into Julian's finances from 5 years ago. Every account, every shell company. And Marcus. His voice went cold. If you find what I think you'll find, we tell no one. Not yet. When Talia woke that afternoon, Miles had his mask firmly in place. He introduced Marcus as Dr. Chen, a trauma specialist. Watched as Talia's eyes narrowed with suspicion. I don't need a therapist. Her voice was stronger today, defiant. I need answers. You need rest, Miles countered. And someone to help you navigate. Whatever this is. Whatever this is. She sat up, the hospital gown slipping off one shoulder. You're a stranger who brought me to a penthouse I could never afford, with private doctors and security everywhere. Why? Because you might be the woman I buried. Because I see her every time you breathe. Because I can, he said instead. Her laugh was bitter. Nobody does something for nothing. What do you want from me? Everything. Your memories. Your truth. The 5 years I lost. But Miles just turned toward the door. Rest. Dr. Chen will be by tomorrow. He was halfway down the hall when her voice stopped him cold. I know your face, Talia called out, uncertain. From before the rain. I've seen you before. Haven't I? Miles didn't turn around. Couldn't let her see what that did to him. Behind his back, his hand trembled against the wall. No, he lied. We've never met. 3 days of watching Talia wake screaming from nightmares Miles couldn't see. 3 days of her flinching every time footsteps approached. She was terrified of something, or someone she couldn't name. So he tried softer weapons. New clothes that actually fit. Books she'd stare at but never read. A window seat where afternoon light pooled like safety. You don't have to do this, she said on the 4th day, folding the cashmere blanket he'd brought. Her hands moved with unconscious precision, the same way Nathalia used to fold his shirts. Whatever debt you think I owe. There's no debt. Miles set down the tea he'd personally made. 2 sugars, no cream, exactly how Nathalia took hers. A test she didn't know she was taking. Talia lifted the cup, sipped, and something flickered across her face. confusion, almost recognition. Why does this taste like I've had it before? His heart stopped. It's just Earl Grey. No. Her voice fractured. There was a place. White walls. Bright lights. They gave me tea, but it tasted wrong, always wrong, like chemicals. Her breathing quickened. They said I was sick. That I needed to stay. But the doors locked from the outside. Miles was across the room in 2 strides. What place? Where? I don't. She pressed her palms to her temples. I can't see it clearly. But I was there for so long. Years, maybe. And then I ran. When? His voice cracked with urgency. When did you run? A week ago. 2. I don't. She looked up at him with those devastating eyes. Why do you care so much? You don't even know me. But I did. I do. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Miles stepped into the hallway, hands shaking. Tell me you found something. The fire marshal's report, Marcus said, voice tight. It was altered. I got the original from a source. Miles, there was only one body recovered. Your wife's. The child's remains were never actually confirmed. They extrapolated based on nothing. Bile rose in Miles's throat. They found nothing because she wasn't there. There's more. Julian's offshore accounts show a payment. $200,000 to Mercy Hills Psychiatric Facility. 3 days after Nathalia's death. Monthly payments after that for 5 years. Until when? Until 2 weeks ago. The facility was shut down by the state. Patient welfare violations. Miles, if someone was keeping her there. A crash from the guest room. Miles dropped the phone and ran. Talia stood frozen by the window, staring at her reflection. She'd pulled back her hair, and there, hidden at her hairline, was a surgical scar. Fresh. Maybe 2 weeks old. They put something in my head, she whispered. Before I escaped. I can feel it when I try to remember. It hurts. Miles pulled her into his arms as she collapsed. And through the window, 15 floors below, a silver Mercedes with diplomatic plates pulled away from the curb. Julian's car. 2 weeks became 3. Talia's nightmares lessened, but only when Miles stayed nearby. He told himself it was surveillance, that he needed to observe her reactions, catalog her mannerisms, compare them to the woman he'd lost. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. He couldn't leave her alone. You're hovering, she said one evening, watching him arrange dinner on the balcony. Real plates, real food, not the hospital trays she'd been getting. Like I'm going to disappear. You already did. Once. Eat, he said instead. Dr. Chun says you need to gain at least 10 pounds. She picked at the pasta, carbonara, Nathalia's favorite, and again that flicker of confused recognition. I know this tastes right. But I don't know why I know. Miles's phone buzzed. Marcus. 5th call today. He ignored it. Tell me about yourself, Talia pressed. If I'm staying in your home, I should know who you are. I build things. Buildings, mostly. That's what you do. Her eyes, so achingly familiar, held his. Not who you are. I'm a man who buried the woman he loved and spent 5 years turning into ice. I'm a man who might be looking at a miracle or a ghost. I'm someone who doesn't let go easily, he said quietly. Her hand moved across the table, hesitated, then covered his. The touch sent electricity through him, wrong and right and terrifying all at once. That night, Marcus cornered him in the study with a file thick as a Bible. The fire investigation was a hack job, Marcus said, spreading crime scene photos. Look at the ignition point. Professional accelerant pattern. And the security footage? 20-minute gap right before it started. Miles's blood went cold. Someone disabled it. Your head of security at the time, Victor Reeves, took sudden medical leave 2 days before the fire. Paid off his mortgage 3 weeks later. Marcus pulled out another document. And this, the dental records used to identify Nathalia's body? Margin of error was 15%. They rushed it. Because Julian wanted her declared dead. Miles's hands curled into fists. He staged it. All of it. There's more. Marcus's voice dropped. That surgical scar on Talia? I contacted a neurosurgeon. It's consistent with deep brain stimulation placement, sometimes used to suppress memory formation. If Julian kept her in that facility, had them operate. A scream tore through the penthouse. Miles ran. Talia stood in the hallway, staring at a portrait he'd forgotten was there. Him and Nathalia at their engagement party. His arm around her waist. Her wearing red. That's me, Talia whispered, trembling. That's me in the painting. How is that me? And before Miles could answer, every light in the penthouse went black. In the darkness, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. Hello, brother. I see you found my mistake. Emergency lights flooded red. Marcus appeared with 2 security guards, but Julian was already at the private elevator, adjusting his cufflinks like he'd stopped by for tea. You can't prove anything, Miles, Julian said smoothly. And even if you could, who would believe the Ice King's grief made him see ghosts? The elevator doors closed on his smile. Miles pulled Talia behind him. His heart a war drum. Double security. No. No one gets in or out without biometric clearance. Miles. Her voice shook. That portrait. Please. Tell me why I'm in it. He couldn't. Not until he was certain. Not until the DNA results. His phone lit up. Dr. Chen. The genetics lab. I need a minute, Miles said, already moving to his study. Marcus followed. The email was 3 sentences long. DNA comparison complete. Samples match with 99.9998% probability. Patient is definitively Nathalia Reeves. The room tilted. Miles gripped the desk, lungs forgetting how to work. 5 years. 5 years of a grave he'd visited every week, of a ghost he'd carried like a stone. And she was alive. She'd been alive. Jesus, Marcus breathed, reading over his shoulder. She's really. Get me everything. Miles's voice broke. Every payment Julian made 5 years ago. Every shell account, every offshore transfer. I want the name of whoever took her, who put that thing in her brain, who kept her locked away while he'd become a monster. While he'd buried himself in work and ice and rage. There's more, Marcus said grimly, pulling up his laptop. Julian's accounts show a wire transfer. $300,000 to Centauri Group 2 weeks before Nathalia's accident. They're known for making problems disappear. He hired them to kill her. The words tasted like murder. And when they botched it, he paid Mercy Hills to keep her sedated. Miles, if she'd gotten her memory back, she could have testified. She was the heir to the Reeves pharmaceutical fortune. Her death made Julian executor of the estate. Miles stood slowly, every muscle coiled. How much? 1.2 billion. Give or take. A sound escaped Miles, something between a laugh and a howl. His brother had tried to murder the woman he loved for money. Had stolen 5 years of her life, of their life. I'm telling her, Miles said. Tonight. Everything. Miles, if Julian knows she's here. An alarm shrieked through the penthouse. The security panel flashed red. Perimeter breach. Sublevel garage. Marcus's radio crackled. Sir, we have an explosive device. Evacuate now. Evacuate. The world turned white. Miles woke to smoke and ringing ears. The explosion had blown out the study windows. Marcus had shoved them both through the panic room door seconds before impact. Now they huddled in a fortified suite 3 blocks away, one of 6 properties Miles kept off the books. Talia sat wrapped in a blanket, mascara streaked and shaking. Someone just tried to kill us. Not us. Miles pulled the DNA report from his jacket, somehow still intact. You. He laid it on the table between them like a grenade. Your name isn't Talia. It's Nathalia Reeves. You were my fiancée. 5 years ago, my stepbrother tried to have you murdered for your inheritance. When you survived, he paid a psychiatric facility to keep you sedated and locked away. His voice cracked. You've been missing for 5 years. And I buried an empty coffin. She stared at the paper, at the photograph he placed beside it, Nathalia at their engagement, radiant in red. The same face that now looked back at him, hollow with shock. No. Her voice was tiny. That's not, I would remember. They put something in your brain. Miles pulled up the neurosurgeon's report on his phone. Desperate. Here. The scar on your scalp. It's from deep brain stimulation. They were suppressing your memories. Stop. Tears streamed down her face. Stop lying to me. I'm not. Everyone lies. She hurled the papers at him. The clinic lied. The doctors lied. You brought me into your home and watched me like an experiment. Was any of it real? Miles crossed to her, dropped to his knees. Yes. God, yes. Every moment. Nathalia. Don't call me that. But her hands fisted in his shirt, holding him close even as she shook. I don't know that name. I don't know you. Then let me help you remember. He took her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away tears. We have time now. No more running, no more clinics. I'll show you who you were. Who we were. And if you never remember, his voice broke. If you never remember, I'll help you become whoever you want to be. But I won't let Julian take you again. I won't lose you twice. She searched his eyes, something flickering there. Recognition. Hope. Promise me, she whispered. Promise you'll tell me the truth. All of it. Even the ugly parts. I promise. Marcus burst through the door, phone in hand. We have a problem. Julian just released a statement to the press. He turned the screen. The headline blazed. Billionaire Miles Joe kidnaps mentally ill woman. Claims she's dead fiancé. Below it, Julian's interview. My brother never recovered from his loss. I fear he's having a psychotic break. Nathalia's face went white. He's making you look insane. Worse, Marcus said. He's filing for emergency conservatorship. Of you. The conservatorship hearing was in 48 hours. 48 hours for Julian to spin his narrative. The grieving brother trying to protect a mentally ill woman from his delusional sibling. We need the evidence, Miles said, pacing the safe house like a caged animal. Everything. Now. Marcus spread files across the table. 5 years of financial forensics. Julian didn't work alone. He couldn't have. Someone on your security team disabled the penthouse systems before the explosion. Miles's blood went cold. Who? Victor Chen. Marcus's face twisted. His own cousin. My goddamn cousin. Julian paid him $500,000 to look the other way. The same Victor who was head of security 5 years ago when Nathalia died. Miles slammed his fist on the table. He disabled the mansion's security before the fire. He let the mercenaries in. And last week, he gave Julian access codes to the penthouse. Marcus's voice cracked. Miles, I brought him into your organization. I vouched for him. Nathalia stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself. How many people wanted me dead? Just one. Miles moved to her side. Julian orchestrated everything. The rest were just paid to follow orders. Marcus pulled up a recording on his laptop. This is from Victor's phone. He kept insurance. Conversations with Julian. Listen. Julian's voice cold and precise. The Reeves woman can't resurface. If she testifies about the fire, if she remembers what happened that night, everything collapses. The pharmaceutical empire, the estate, all of it reverts to her. Do you understand? She's not just a loose end. She's a $1.2 billion problem. Nathalia's knees buckled. Miles caught her. That's not enough for court, she whispered. He never says he ordered my death. Just that I'm a problem. That's why we need a confession. Miles's jaw set. Julian thinks he's won. He's filing for conservatorship because he believes you're helpless, that I'm unstable. We let him think that. You want to bait him, Marcus said slowly. I want him to hang himself. Miles turned to Nathalia. The hearing is public. You'll be there. And when Julian sees you, when he realizes you're coherent and recovering, he'll panic, she finished. Make a mistake. Or make another attempt on your life. Marcus's expression darkened. Miles, if he's desperate. The burner phone on the table buzzed. Unknown number. Miles answered on speaker. Julian's voice slithered through. Hello, brother. I assume you found Victor's little insurance policy by now. Clever. But circumstantial. See you in court. The line went dead. Nathalia's hand found Miles's, gripping tight. He's listening, she breathed. He knows where we are. The lights went out. Emergency lights activated. Red glow turning everything hellish. Marcus had his weapon drawn, clearing corners. But the threat wasn't inside. It was already here. Victor stepped from the shadows, gun leveled at Nathalia. Julian says hello. Miles moved without thinking, putting himself between them. You'll have to kill me first. That was always the plan. Victor's finger tightened on the trigger. Marcus fired. Victor dropped, clutching his shoulder. Police sirens wailed. Marcus had triggered the silent alarm the moment the lights cut. Within minutes, the safe house swarmed with SWAT. He'll talk, Miles said, watching paramedics load Victor into an ambulance. He's done. He'll give up Julian to save himself. Not fast enough. Nathalia's voice was steel. Julian has lawyers, money, time. He'll disappear before we can touch him. Then we don't give him time. Miles pulled out his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. We force his hand. 48 hours later, the conservatorship hearing packed a courthouse with media vultures and society elite. Julian sat front row, immaculate in Tom Ford, playing the concerned brother. Until Nathalia walked in. Not the broken woman from the alley. She wore a dove-gray suit, hair swept back to show the scar on her hairline. Every camera captured Julian's face draining white. Miss Reeves, the judge said carefully. You're aware Mr. Julian Joe has petitioned for emergency conservatorship, claiming you're mentally incapacitated? I'm aware. Her voice rang clear. I'm also aware he paid Centuri Group $300,000 to murder me 5 years ago. That he bribed Dr. Harold Chen at Mercy Hills to keep me sedated. That he... Your Honor. Julian's lawyer shot up. These are wild accusations. With evidence. Miles's attorney dropped Victor's recorded confessions on the judge's bench. Mr. Victor Chen has provided testimony in exchange for reduced sentencing. He names Julian Joe as the architect of both the original assassination attempt and last week's bombing. Julian's mask cracked. He lunged toward Nathalia. You should have stayed dead. Bailiffs tackled him. Cameras flashed like lightning. But as they dragged Julian away, he locked eyes with Miles and smiled. You think you've won? Julian laughed, wild. She's not the only one I buried, brother. Ask Nathalia about the baby. The courtroom erupted. Nathalia went rigid, face draining of color. What baby? Miles demanded, gripping her shoulders. Nathalia, what is he talking about? She looked at him with eyes full of a horror he'd never seen. I remember, she whispered. Oh God. I remember everything. The courtroom fell silent as Nathalia's memories crashed back. 5 years unlocking in seconds. I was pregnant, she whispered, hand pressed to her stomach. 3 months. We were going to tell everyone at the gala that night. But when I fell, when Julian pushed me, Miles couldn't breathe. The baby. I woke up in Mercy Hills bleeding. They told me it was gone. That the trauma. Her voice shattered. They took everything from me. My life, my memories, our child. Julian's laughter echoed as bailiffs dragged him out. Ask yourself, brother. Did I really take everything? 3 months later, Miles stood in the garden of the estate he'd bought. Smaller than his penthouse, warmer. Real. Nathalia knelt in the soil, planting roses, her hands steady now. The doctors said her memory might never fully stabilize, but each day brought more pieces back. The baby's DNA, she said without looking up. Marcus ran it against every birth record in the state. Nothing. Because Julian hid it. Miles crouched beside her. Or sold it. Or killed it. The words tasted like poison. He won't talk. His lawyers are stalling. Miles took her dirt-stained hands. But we'll find answers. I promise you. She leaned into him, and for a moment, they were just two people trying to grow something beautiful from ashes. That night, Nathalia woke screaming. Not from nightmares, from memory. The dress, she gasped, clutching Miles. The red dress I was wearing in the alley. I remember now. The night Julian pushed me, I was wearing blue. Hospital records from Mercy Hills say I arrived in blue. But 5 years later, I escaped wearing red. Miles went cold. Someone changed your clothes. In the weeks before I ran. Her eyes widened with horror. There was a nurse. She'd visit late at night, when I was barely conscious. She'd whisper things. About a daughter. About, Nathalia grabbed her phone, pulling up old news articles. Miles. Look at the date Julian's monthly payments to Mercy Hills stopped. 2 weeks before Nathalia escaped. He didn't stop paying because the facility closed, Miles said slowly. He stopped because someone else took over. A knock at the door. 2 a.m., wrong and terrifying. Marcus stood there, face grave, holding a manila envelope. You need to see this. Now. Inside, a single photograph. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, with Nathalia's almond eyes and Miles's sharp jawline. Standing beside her, hand on her shoulder, was a woman they both recognized. Dr. Chen's wife. The woman who'd helped Nathalia at Mercy Hills. On the back, written in elegant script. She's been waiting for you. Come alone, or she disappears forever. Cliffside. Midnight tomorrow. Nathalia's hand shook. It's a trap. Of course it is. Miles pulled her close, feeling her heart race against his. But if there's even a chance our daughter is alive, then we walk into it anyway.